Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome out to our little virtual workshop this morning. Um, really happy to have you out. I know we've got a lot of people that are still going to be joining us here over the next minute or two. But Stephen and I wanted to hop on here and first just thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for taking the time to join us to learn about Florida tax sales a little bit. It's kind of the topic that we're going to be discussing today is Florida specifically. Really, because Florida has been the leader of tax sales, I think at least for the last 25, 30 years.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of good things about Florida. We'll go through and talk about Florida as well as other strategies you can use throughout the United States in purchasing tax liens and deeds. To kind of give you guys a little background on us, some of you guys are probably, may not know us. Me and Shade are cousins, and we attended our first tax sale in around 1999. And for the next several years, we ended up researching everything we could about tax sale investing and ended up writing a home study program. And in 2007, we started working with seminar companies. In fact, we ended up going and teaching trainings in Florida back then in 2007, and we did that for about a decade.
Yeah. Really, the way that we started was probably a lot like many of you have started. It was something that we were initially interested in, and we started trying to figure out, how it worked. So I think we've been down the same path that a lot of that most investors, go down when they're trying to learn this. But long story short, we did work with them for a long time. We taught a lot of students, through that. We got away from the seminar companies, probably, I don't know, back around 2015 or so.
Yeah.
And started tax sale support, the website, and ever since then, we just have our own website that offers a membership program, and then we also have some personal coaching that we do and some small events.
Yeah, so as far as kind of what we ended up doing, we took our home study program that we were selling with the seminar companies, and we just made it online, like Shade said, into a membership programs, which offers list and training and things like that. And so what we want to do today is go through and talk about tax sale investing, explain tax liens, tax deeds, and also how Florida works and how you can buy tax liens and deeds through auction.
Yeah, we want to cover Florida specifically, and also because, in fact, we'll be talking about it in a second here, but we're going to actually be out in Florida, in a couple weeks. And so, that's part of the reason why we wanted to focus on Florida and Florida residents is because we're actually going to be out there on the 22nd through the 24th.
Yeah, exactly. Now, before getting into tax liens and deeds, we just need to back up just a second and talk about property taxes. Really, the tax sale system was created to recoup property taxes. If you own real estate, then you're going to have to pay property taxes on it. Now, these property taxes really go to pay for everything.
Yeah, something else that's important to note is that property taxes are something that are controlled on a state level. State law is ultimately what controls, how property taxes work. So while every state has property taxes, their systems for enforcing those taxes can, differ slightly.
Yeah, for sure. So as far as types of tax sale properties, you can buy tax liens and deeds really about against any type of property you can think of. Me and Shade have really seen everything come up for auction over the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, you're going to get a pretty broad range. That's because everybody pays property taxes. Everybody's late on their property taxes or bills at times, and so it's not unusual at all. It's perfectly normal part of the investment system. But as you look across the United States, what you're looking at is, so across all of the states, there are 3 systems total that that are used. So in other words, if you can learn these 3 systems, you pretty well understand property tax enforcement anywhere in the country. It's just a matter of kind of learning the specifics of that area.
Yeah, exactly. And those 3 systems are tax liens, tax deeds, and redemption deeds. Now, and when me and Shade first got started around 1999, 2000, there was really only a couple of books available. There wasn't a lot of information. And as me and Shade started researching it, we just figured out that there was tax liens, there was something called tax deeds, But then there was this group that weren't really tax liens or tax deeds, and we ended up calling them redemption deeds. Sometimes they're known as redeemable deeds. That's not necessarily the name the county may give to it, but that's how we classify these type. And we'll go through and talk about each one of these categories.
Yeah. In fact, if you can see, we've got a handful of states in this picture that are in gray, and these are states that utilize more than one system. Some of the states are very straightforward. They use either a lien system or they use a deed system, or there's some that have redemption deeds. But there are a handful of states that will use both tax liens and tax deeds, which can make them a little bit confusing when you're trying to figure out how they work.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, like Shade mentioned, we're going to be in Orlando on April 22nd through the 24th, and we're going to go through and explain how, today we're going to explain how tax liens, tax deeds, redemption deeds work. But it's impossible to go over everything you need to know to invest. So if you are interested, we have 5 tickets left for the event.
Yeah, essentially, the events that we do are normally mostly for our coaching students. That's who's filling up the majority of this event. But we do have some openings. We've got 5 openings basically. And figured we would hold this event to see if anybody in the Florida area wanted to attend. And we wanted to sweeten the deal up a bit. So the tickets are already been reduced dramatically in price down to $499. But we're also including 6 months of membership access to tax sale support, which is almost a $250 value just by itself.
Yeah,
it covers almost half the price.
Yeah, it's going to give you access to all of our lists, to our weekly webinars, and we'll go through it at the very end and talk a little bit more about it. But for those that are interested, here in the beginning, we do want to let you know. In fact, we'll grab a link and put it into the chat section here in a little bit that you can go to and register for it, or you can also call our 1-800 number down there at the bottom as well if you're interested to learn more.
Yeah, if you want to attend that, like I said, we've got only 5 openings for this event here on the 22nd to the 24th. So if you're interested, we would love to see you out there at the event. We can talk more about it at the very end. Let's first talk about what we'd like to do is kind of cover quickly tax liens, tax deeds, redemption deeds, and talk about the auctions a bit, and then go out and show you some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So why do investors buy tax liens? Tax liens are really a very simple investment. They're far easier to buy than most real estate because you're not buying the real estate per se. We're buying liens against the real estate, and so they're very attractive to investors because they're very simple, but they're also highly profitable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can earn a high rate of return. Also, tax liens, and why investors buy tax liens is they're secured by real estate. The debt that they pay, or the debt that you're paying off and buying that lien, is secured by a piece of property. And so that's one of the reasons why investors were interested in tax liens in the beginning, is because the debt is secured by real estate.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, tax liens are very simple. You're really going to either end up getting a check in the mail when the property redeems, or you get foreclosure rights after the redemption period expires. So it's really going to be one way or the other. And most of the time people pay off their taxes. And so when that happens, it just ends up resulting as a check in the mail.
Yeah. Now here's a couple examples of tax liens that were purchased by some of our members. You can see that these aren't huge liens. They range between $500 to about $1,200 or so. And the properties are valued between $45,000 to around $65,000. So not real expensive homes, but also not incredibly huge amount of a lien securing a property that does have value.
Well, these are all fantastic liens. They're all exactly the types of liens that you want to go after. And that's because if you look at the amount of the lien, what they paid versus versus the property value amount, we're talking about very low percentages here on properties that have a lot of use and value. Properties that have a high likelihood of redeeming, and if they didn't redeem, they would be well worth foreclosing on.
Yeah. So, what is it? What is a lien? Probably one of the first things we need to talk about. Well, A lien is really a legal claim placed against property for unpaid compensation. And so, it really what it does is it prevents the sale of transfer of ownership. It prevents selling the property or refinancing the property.
Yeah. If you get a lien against the property, you can't really do anything with it. So an example of this would be, well, okay, here's a type of lien that's not it's not a first position lien like a tax lien, but a mechanics lien even. So if you were having your house built, okay, and you didn't pay the plumber, they could go into the county government, and they could place a mechanics lien against your property. And what would happen is when you tried to close on that property, at the end of it being built, you wouldn't be able to do so because this lien would basically be there preventing that transfer of ownership. And so, tax liens are even stronger, than a mechanics lien like that, because it's a first position lien. It's basically the same. It's on the same level as an IRS lien. They're equally. I guess you could say that they're kind of equal types of liens. They're government liens, and so it basically takes priority or precedence over any other kind of lien. That's part of the reason why. Well, it has to be that way too. In order for the property tax system to work. So, to show you a little bit here, when a lien is issued against the property, there are a couple of things that happen. And really only a couple of things that we need to worry about as investors. And really they are the interest rate return and the redemption period.
Yeah, now when it comes to the interest rate return, every tax lien is going to be given a interest rate return, and that's going to be determined by the state. Now, that interest rate return is going to be accrued on an annual basis. So if we're talking about 18%, that's going to be 1.5% per month. Now, one thing that's interesting about Florida is Florida has an early payoff penalty, meaning that if you go ahead and buy that tax lien and the investor comes in, or the property owner comes in and pays it off the next week, you're going to get at least a guaranteed 5% return.
Yeah, in fact, anytime in the first year, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the reason that a lot of investors end up going to Florida is banking on that early redemption period, because a lot of investors will go ahead and pay off.
Well, it's also one of the reasons when we first started, when we were just getting started, 20 years ago, looking at Florida, one of the things that we couldn't understand in the beginning was why sometimes we would see big financial institutions, that would bid property down, and we're trying to figure out how it would be profitable and how they would make money when they did that. But when you account in that early payoff penalty, you realize that it balances out there for some of these big institutions. They know that they're going to have a certain percentage of the liens that are going to redeem in the first year.
Well, and when the big banks used to dominate these sales was also back before online auctions. Online auctions ended up leveling the playing field again a bit. Another thing that we need to talk about is redemption periods. Now, really, the redemption period is the time frame that the property owner has before they can repay the time frame they have before the lien holder can foreclose on the property.
Yeah, you can basically consider it, the due date on the lien. It's valid for a certain time frame there, and for the property owner, they have a certain time frame where they don't have to worry about losing the property to foreclosure. So when there's liens placed against property, during that redemption period, they don't have to worry about losing the property. They have to worry about losing it after the redemption period expires. So up until that redemption period expires, the property owner is still safe. But as soon as it expires, what happens is the lien holder, the lien changes. It changes from, and the foreclosure rights, become active and valid, meaning that they give the lien holder the right to initiate foreclosure once that redemption period expires. So, in other words, as a lien holder, we have to kind of sit back and wait for the investment to do something. We have to wait for the property owner to pay off the lien or not pay off the lien. And the only way we really know that is by waiting out the redemption period to see what happens.
Yeah. So every state is going to have an interest rate return. dictated by the state, and a redemption period attached to it. Now, usually those redemption periods will last from on the short end, a year, up to 4 years, depending on the state. Usually it's around 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. In Florida, though, it's 2 years. So, it's fairly straightforward in Florida, where we have a 2-year redemption period on every tax lien that's sold. So on the day of the sale, the lien is issued against the property. It also begins accruing interest on the day of the sale, along with the redemption period also starting. So those things all happen on the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, after purchasing the tax lien, really one of two things are going to occur. Either the property owner is going to go ahead and pay off the county, pay off the back taxes, or they're not going to pay off the back taxes.
Yeah, most of the time people pay off the delinquent taxes that they owe. So even if it's late, they pay the county off, and what the county does is they redeem the lien. As they do that, they cut a check to you for your initial investment plus the interest that you earned.
Yeah.
And this is what happens the majority of the time.
Yeah, it's going to result in checks in the mail. In fact, this is a check that I received, on a tax lien that I initially purchased in 2006. And, this is not a big lien. It's a $165 return. I think the lien was 120 or something like that. But what we want to show is that you don't need to have huge amounts of money to get started. This was a very small lien, but it still went through the process. I got a check, and I was earning, a good interest rate on this tax lien the entire time.
Yeah. In fact, what's interesting on this one is that this was actually partial pay. Yeah. Well, let's do this. So the second scenario here is what happens if the property owner doesn't pay? Because this is where it gets a little bit foggier for people. And it's fairly straightforward, especially in Florida. Florida makes this really easy for us. So if the property owner doesn't pay, then in Florida, what we can do then is we basically are going to initiate the foreclosure process. In Florida specifically, all we have to do is file for a deed.
Yeah.
But basically what's going to happen here with normal liens is if the lien doesn't redeem here and you have to foreclose on it, then the lien holder needs to go before the county, and the only thing they're going to have to do is pay the taxes or make the taxes current in order to foreclose. The county's basically going to say, look, in order to foreclose on the property, in order to transfer ownership, the property taxes have to be current. In other words, you can't have any active liens against the property before we can transfer ownership. So as the lien holder, you might have to pay off another lien because your lien represents 1 year of taxes.
Yeah, exactly. So either the property owner is going to pay them off, we're going to get the checks in the mail. In fact, we're not going to get a check in the mail. Most of the time, it's going to go directly into your direct deposit. Or they're not going to pay, and that's going to result in a tax lien foreclosure. Now, once the tax lien has reached the end of the redemption period, then like Shade mentioned, the lien holder can go ahead and foreclose on that property. Now, like Shade talked about, you can go ahead and fill out that deed application, and the county will go ahead and do the foreclosure for you. Now that's called a self-executing state. Florida, a state like South Carolina, in fact, South Carolina, they'll go ahead and send you the deed once the 1 year redemption period has passed. But there's other states out there that you're going to need to hire an attorney. Those are called non-self-executing states. These are going to be states like Arizona and Nebraska, where once that redemption period is end, then you're going to need to go ahead and contact an attorney, and they're going to go ahead and go through the foreclosure process so that you can acquire ownership. Now, when you buy property this way, and you're able to do the foreclosure on a tax lien, you're acquiring the property for literally pennies on the dollar. Tax liens are usually 1-2% of property value, and at most you may have 2 or 3 or 4 years worth of property taxes built up. So when you're acquiring these properties, you're getting them between 5 to 10 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, and there's also just to say the self-executing system really simplifies the investment dramatically for the lien investor. So in other words, if you're investing in liens in a state that doesn't have a self-executing foreclosure, then foreclosing is a little bit of work. you have to hire an attorney, you have to kind of go through this process. It's really a matter of who has to handle the foreclosure, whether you have to handle it or whether the county has to, whether the county is going to handle it. So in Florida, the county handles it and it simplifies it pretty dramatically versus, going through the foreclosure process, through hiring an attorney.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, here are a couple of examples of tax lien certificates that were picked up and actually ended up in property foreclosure. So the property on the top left has a value of around $290,000, and it had a total of $9,400 in back taxes. Now, there would have been some additional cost, attorney cost, probably between, depending on the property, could go as little as maybe $1,500 or $2,000 up to $5,000 in additional cost to do the foreclosure, but they essentially acquired that property for $9,400. The property on the bottom had a value of $650,000 and was picked up for around $30,000 in back taxes. So when we're talking about picking up property for pennies on the dollar, this is really where this is possible, is by foreclosing on tax lien certificates and becoming the new owner.
Yeah. Now, it's impossible to predict, though, which properties this is going to happen with. The only way it happens is if you buy enough of them, eventually it'll happen. It's just kind of difficult to predict ahead of time, especially with properties this nice.
Yeah, in fact, really, we're talking about 5% of the properties that 5% of tax liens end up in foreclosure where you actually acquire the property.
Yeah, and of that 5%, it's a small percent, that are that are fancy, really nice like this.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, tax deeds are the second system. They're used in about 15 to 20 states. I have to look at the exact number here, but it's a very simple system where one of the biggest things we're looking at is the county basically waits out a redemption period on the property. So the state law sets a redemption period, says it's 2 years or 3 years, or we're here in Utah where it's 5 years. But after that time period, the county has the power to foreclose on the property and offer it up at auction to recover the money that they're missing.
Yeah, exactly. Shade's right. They're going to go ahead and foreclose on the property. They're going to create a tax deed, and then they're going to offer up that tax deed property at a public auction, starting with the delinquent taxes. Now, one thing to think about when we're talking about tax deeds is we're talking about 100% ownership. So you are buying the property. So with the taxing certificate, we only have 5% chance of acquiring the property. With a tax deed, we are the new owner, which means that we're really going to have to research this property before buying it so that we don't make any mistakes.
Yeah, the tax deed itself is actually a type of property deed. It's like a quitclaim deed, or a special warranty deed, or a limited warranty deed. It's a type of property deed, a tax deed is, and it's equivalent to a quitclaim deed. And so that's one thing that people don't always understand, is that tax deeds are a type of deed that the county creates when it forecloses.
Yeah. Now here are a couple member property deals. A single family home and also a building lot. You can see that building lot on the left was picked up for around $1,800. Was worth about $20,000. And then there was also a home there on the right as well.
Yeah. The home was picked up for right around 10% of value, and which is excellent. With a lot of these tax deed properties, they might open up a lot of times for under 10% of value, because the annual property taxes, basically to figure out that amount, you look at the total number of years delinquent they can be in that state before they get foreclosed on, and you figure what the taxes are annually, and you figure that about 4 times.
Yeah, exactly. Now the one on the left was picked up in an over-the-counter sale, and the one on the right was actually picked up in an on-site auction. And we're going to talk about that here a little later when we go through on-site and online auctions.
Yeah. So before the sale, when it comes to a tax deed auction, one of the things to consider is that these properties are going through a foreclosure, right up before the sale happens. That's where the county has sent out, the foreclosure notices. you know, the properties are in the process of being lost to foreclosure.
Yeah, exactly. So the county will go ahead and send out the final notice. They're going to go ahead and do the judicial foreclosure, and then they're going to set an auction date and provide the tax sale list. In fact, that's something, you know, that we include within our membership program is we go out and we collect all these lists. We've been collecting lists and providing lists to students since 2007. So we've been doing it for a long time, and provide them to our membership.
Well, it's hard to know when, you know, tax sales are happening, you know, and that's part of the challenge is that, you know, finding the areas, but also, you know, finding out, you know, finding the auctions and when the auctions are active. You know, when we, you know, when you first get started, you know, you start trying to venture outside of your state and look for more opportunities. That's kind of what, you know, what we've done with each state, was trying to figure out how they work and operate, and also try to keep track of when their sales are happening so that we know every year, you know, when to pay attention. But on the day of the sale, though, you know, with the tax deed auction, the property's going to, you know, they're going to offer up the deeds. Tax deeds are all purchased through highest bidding or premium bidding. Premium bidding is basically what it is when, you know, when they establish when the high bidder wins the property. So
yeah, it's like any type of eBay auction or anything else. You know, whoever is the high bidder will go ahead and win the property. And three things are going to happen after the sale. First of all, the county's going to record the deed in the county recorder's office. Second, they're going to mail out the deed to the new owner, hopefully us. And then once we get that deed, that's really when we're going to start implementing our exit strategy. Now, we're already going to know or have a good idea and start the process of what we're going to do once we purchase the property as far as that exit strategy, but we can't move on certain aspects of it until we get the deed in certain states. So it'll kind of depend on the state law if you can occupy the property directly after the sale, or if you need to wait till you get to the deed in the mail before you can go and take possession. So every state will have a little bit different law about how that particular state works.
Yeah, this is another member deal. So our coaching students, we're helping them buy properties in different places. You know, this is an auction that he actually attended here just a few months ago, and he picked up a couple of great properties. But this one, it was an awesome example here. You know, this property here, it opened up for about $12,000. This was a you know, large piece of vacant property. But couple of things we can notice about it is that first off, it has an access route all the way to the main road. You know, we can see that little strip, you know, that extends out there, so it's not landlocked. And we can also see, you know, that there are other developed you know, property things like right up to the north of it, like the apartments and stuff there. So it's probably highly developable, but, you know, with the value over 600,000, this was a home run.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're talking about prime development property, like Shay said, you know, almost 18 acres with a value of 650, and that's really the assessed value. That's not even the market value. So in looking at the market value, you know, we've assessed it to be quite a bit more than that. Now, to get a deal like this, sometimes you can get these through online auctions, but this was actually purchased in an on-site auction. So they actually went to the sale, and when you go to an on-site auction, the one thing about that is it limits the competition a little bit. So he was able to get a great deal on this property and is going to be able to do really well on it.
Yeah, if you can attend live auctions, that's always going to be a great idea. It was one of the things that Steve and I did in the beginning that kind of helped us understand, you know, how things worked a little bit better. It was that and trying to break down state laws. You know, those were the two things that probably made the biggest impact. Third system here, redemption deeds. You know, let's talk about them for a minute, because they're kind of weird. You know, they are different. They don't exactly fall into the category of deeds straightforward, or, you know, they're definitely not liens either. You know, in fact, really what they are is they're tax deeds that are sold with the redemption period attached to them. So what that means for you as the investor is you wouldn't be able to sell it immediately after you buy it. You might have to wait for a time period there. You know, you have to wait out that redemption period.
Yeah, in fact, this is what kind of confused us when we first were getting started, because, you know, we one thing we did is here in Utah, the sales are limited. Let me kind of go back a little bit. We have auctions one time a year. A lot of the counties will do their auction on the same day, which makes it difficult if you'd like to attend more than one auction. And the competition, it's pretty competitive, and there's limited property. I mean, there may only be, 20 or 30 property at an auction, and a handful of them are good. And so it's not a huge auction, not a lot of opportunity. And so one thing me and Shade started doing is looking outside of Utah. We can't really do this here very often, except for once a year. And so we started looking in Wyoming and Colorado and Arizona and Idaho, and kind of branched out. And as we did that, we started researching other states, including a state like Texas. And well, Texas isn't a tax deed. I still have a redemption period attached to it, but it's not a tax lien because they're going to let me, at least in the state of Texas, take ownership of the property, meaning at least I can go over there. I can rent the property out. I could live in the property. I have ownership rights during that redemption period, but there's still a redemption period and an interest rate. And so as we started figuring out, that's how we ended up categorizing these as redemption deeds, because they're a lot like a tax deed, but they also have that redemption period attached to it, like a tax lien certificate.
Yeah, redemption periods. One of the things that's different is when they redeem, they pay out a penalty rate rather than an interest rate that accrues. So a penalty rate is just a flat rate of return that pays out regardless of exactly when it happens during that redemption period. So, for example, in Texas, most of the property has a 6-month redemption period. The properties that don't have a 6-month redemption period are homestead properties, which have that specific homestead exemption, and also farmland. And those have a 2-year redemption period. But the way that it works is if a property does redeem in Texas, it pays out a flat 25% annual penalty. So for most properties in Texas, if they're going to redeem, they're going to redeem in that first 6 months, or not at all. And when they do, if they do, then you'll get back what you paid, for the property plus a 25% flat return. If you happen to have something like a homestead property or farmland and it gets into that second year at all, then if it were to redeem, you do have the possibility to make that 25% twice, so basically 50% return on your money. But the longer, that's pretty difficult for a property owner to come up with if they're already, struggling and couldn't come up with the money to stop the sale.
Yeah. Well, and when it comes to redemption deeds, except for the state of Texas, where farmland and homestead properties have 2 years, all other states have short redemption periods. So Georgia is a year, some other states as low as 6 months, even as low as 90 to 120 days, depending on the type of property in the individual state.
And that's not long at all. That's almost the time it takes you to get the deed in some
Exactly.
cases.
So, if you can go and you have a 120-day or a 90-day redemption period, you may need to wait a little while, but you're either going to get back an interest rate return, or you're going to be able to acquire the property within that time frame. And a lot of these redemption deeds states, like Shade mentioned, will go ahead and offer up a penalty return rather than an interest rate return. That's one thing that kind of is different between redemption deeds and tax lien certificates. Is tax liens, that interest rate is going to be broken up over a year, so you're earning a 1.5% per month in the case of getting a high interest rate of 18% in Florida, where a redemption deed, if they pay you back the next week, in the case of Texas, you're going to make a 25% return. So if you invested 10 grand, they pay you back next week, you're going to be taking home 12,500 within a very short period of time.
And that's if it redeems, though. When you buy redemption deeds, kind of like tax deeds, where you're buying the property, you need to basically just plan on buying the property, and if it happens to redeem, then it redeems. But you have to buy it like you're buying the property outright, because the chances are that it has a high likelihood that that's exactly what will happen. At least 50% of redemption deeds result in property ownership. It's probably a 50% redemption, 50% redeem maybe.
Yeah.
If it's even that high.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and if we're researching redemption deeds, we're going to go ahead and research it just like we're going to own the property. Meaning if it's a structured property, we are going to view it ourselves, or we're going to send somebody out there to take current photos. The one thing you cannot do is just trust online information and assume that the house is in the same condition. And so, you know, if we are talking about structured properties, for example, any of these homes, we would actually have somebody go out there, if we can't do it ourselves, and take current photos so we can really evaluate the condition. But these are some Texas tax deeds that were coming up for auction a while back. These are, you know, opening bid of around on that top left property, $5,000, worth about 70. You know, $3,000 worth about 100. Now they can bid up depending on the auction. So it's going to start at $5,000 and it's going to bid up just like a tax deed.
So what about Florida? You know, that's kind of the focus or the topic here of the training today. And like we said in the beginning, Florida's kind of always been a leader in tax sales, but it's because they do two different types of systems here. That's why they can be confusing. They have a complete tax lien system and they have a tax deed system.
Yeah, exactly. They're one of the unique states because of it. And so as far as tax liens, they're going to be sold by the county tax collector. So when we're talking about Florida tax liens, you're going to go to the county tax collector to get any additional information. And Shade had mentioned before, Florida tax liens have a 2-year redemption period.
Yeah, they also pay out, you know, maximum rate of 18%. So, you know, as the state sets it there, but they also use the interest rate return as kind of the bidding medium as well. But Florida sales are coming up. They happen in May every year. And so, you know, here we have them coming up here next month. And they're very much, you know, a time-based investment where, you know, we can go and look at liens, you know, any time of the year in Florida, but they're not necessarily going to be worth buying any time of the year. You know, we want to get them either at the auction or you know, right after the auction, because a lot of this stuff that gets left over after that are liens against junk property. Really, they're just kind of junk liens, a lot of them.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a time frame to be able to pick up those over-the-counter tax liens. In fact, we're going to talk here a little bit about over-the-counter, and we can talk a little bit more about some of those different strategies. You know, here is just a member success story. These were, you know, one of our students that ended up picking up a couple of tax liens, picked it up for $4,300. Talking about it redeemed, they received a check for $4,750, which ended up making them a nice $450 return. So they just went ahead and bought the tax lien, sat back and did nothing, and were able to make a great return on their money.
Yeah. So, you know, if you want property in Florida, you know, one of the things that is a little bit confusing in Florida is in most states, if you buy liens and that lien, you know, the redemption period comes to an end, as the lien holder, you know, you end up kind of foreclosing on the property and owning the property. Florida has it set up a little bit different, where you know, you're almost guaranteed to get your money back in terms of a check in the mail. In fact, in Florida, you're almost always going to get a check in the mail because what they do is a little bit different when they, you know, when it comes time to, you know, foreclose on the lien. Because what they do instead is basically they will schedule a tax deed auction and sell the property off at auction.
Yeah, Florida, you're not going to acquire property through tax liens. If you do acquire property through a tax lien, that means that you bought the wrong lien, because that means that nobody at the deed sale was willing to buy it.
Yeah, the only way that the lien holder in Florida will end up acquiring the property is if they schedule it for an auction and you know, it doesn't get an opening bid amount. So sometimes, you know, you'll see there with the auction where you know, it says, you know, purchased by third-party bidder, but if it doesn't get purchased, then it basically goes to the lien holder. And that only normally happens with garbage liens.
Yeah, exactly. If you know, ended up getting property through buying tax liens in Florida, you're not buying the right liens.
Yeah.
And so as far as Florida tax deeds, once that 2-year redemption period has passed, then the lien holder can fill out the deed application, pay a fee to the county, and the county will go ahead and foreclose on that property and offer it up for sale. Now, we talked about the tax liens are handled by the tax collector. The tax deeds in Florida are handled by the clerk of court. So they're going to go ahead and foreclose on the property and offer the property up at an upcoming tax deed sale.
Yeah. So if the lien holder, if the deed buyer wants to buy the property, then what they're basically paying off are all the liens and interest that's owed. That's what the bidding is starting at, and then from there they're competing with other bidders for it.
Yeah. Here's actually a couple of success stories of our coaching students that purchased homes in Florida.
Yeah. Which a couple of great deals that they picked up here. I think one of them paid $8,500 for the property, and it's going up in value. One of them paid $13,500, and it's also great market for going up in value.
Yeah, in fact, and she ended up picking this property up for $13,500, and at the time it was worth around $60,000. And she said, what should I do with it? We said, well, you know what? We think this area is going up. The property value's been going up month after month. Let's go ahead and rent this property out. That way you can get residual income coming in. You only paid $13,000 for it. If you can rent it for $1,000 a month, it's going to pay for itself in 13 or 14 months. Let's just do that. And so that's what she ended up doing. She started bringing in rent every single month. And when she sent us in this testimonial, the property had gone up from worth around $60,000 to worth around $95,000. Now, this was about a year and a half ago. We need to have her updated again because now that same property has gone up, an additional $40,000.
Oh yeah, crazy. So last thing we want to talk about here before we go in and kind of look at it are the buying methods. How is it you can acquire tax liens and tax deeds? And really, it's going to be pretty simple, either through auctions or over the counter. Auctions can either be on site or online, but most properties are sold at the auction. If they're not sold at the auction, they can go back to the county, where many counties or some counties will let you purchase them after the sale.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to go through and explain how the auctions work, how over the counter works, but there's so much more when it comes to tax sale investing that you really need to know before starting and going out and start buying property or bidding. And that includes things like researching the tax records, researching the assessor records, being able to go through and do a good property evaluation. And that's something that we're going to be talking and going through in great detail at the 3-day.
Yeah, really, 3 days is a lot more time to be able to cover so much more content. And so, yeah, I think like we were saying, if any of you are just hopped on here earlier, what we were saying at the beginning that we mentioned is one of the reasons why this is kind of focused on Florida is because we're actually going to be in Florida in just a couple weeks here, April 22nd to the 24th. We're doing a 3-day event there. The 3-day event is mostly already filled up with our coaching students. We have essentially about 5 seats open, and so if we wanted to open it up to residents of Florida to see if anybody would like to come out. We're going to be in Orlando on the 22nd to the 24th, and so what we're doing is we've discounted the price of the tickets down to it's only $500 now, and that includes you and a guest, and that also includes 6 months worth of membership website access as well, which is about a $240 value just by itself.
Yeah, absolutely. These 3 days are really attended by our coaching students. So if you are one of the 5 tickets that we have left, we're going to have you start doing a few things between now and the actual training, have you start reviewing a couple videos. So that way, when you get to the 3-day, you're at least up to speed with us. And we're also going to offer a 1-day money back guarantee. We offer a 30-day money back guarantee with our membership program. And the reason we're able to do that is because we provide such a good product for the amount of value that students go ahead and become members with us, and we have that same trust in our 3-day training. So if you want to come out to the 1 day and you decide, hey, this isn't what I thought it was, you can go ahead and cancel after the first day and we'll give you back your money.
Yeah.
You know, no cost to you. And we're able to do that because we really don't think it's going to happen. But if it did, we're going to go ahead and no questions. Hey, we understand it's not for you, and we'll give you your money back.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're interested in doing that, what we're actually would have you do is
Actually, why don't you pull up the website real quick, so that way we can just at least put the link in there in case anyone does want to sign up right now, and then we'll get into online auctions and over the counter.
Let's do that. All right, let's see here. All right, so here is the membership website here.
We're actually in the process of updating all of our website here.
This page.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and you can go down at the bottom and click on the PayPal link, and you can go ahead and get registered, or you can go ahead and give us a call at our 800 number.
Yeah, the 800 number here, which is 1-800-425-8068. You can call that, and we've got somebody there that can answer, that can basically get your seat reserved.
Well, and there's probably a couple of different type of people. There's people that know that they want to go. They're going to go and just, you know, get registered. You know, there's people that maybe want to go but don't know if the time's going to work, or, you know, not sure if you want to go, but you have additional questions. Go ahead and, you know, give us a call, and we can help answer any of those questions for you and set you up with a strategist to see if it's going to work for you or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'd love to see you there, though. You know, it's 3 full days to spend with you know, with our students. It's a lot of time to cover a lot of content, so we really enjoy that. So let's get back into this. In terms of auctions, let's first talk on-site auctions, which for many years were the only way that these were sold, and are still probably the most common.
Yeah, in fact, that was kind of funny when me and Shade first got started. We tried reading books, but all the books were before the internet. So when you were going to research records, you went down to the county courthouse. You spent a week before the auction going through thousands of paper records, you know, and that's the reason why these were dominated by banks and by big money investors, because your average investor, you know, a lot of them wouldn't go down to the county courthouse, didn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
You know, was very confusing. But with online auctions, that's kind of changed a bit. But one of the advantages of the old system, the old on-site auction, is that we're really just dealing with local competition.
Yeah, you're always going to have a more limited amount of competition with an on-site auction, because you know, there's a limited number of people that can drive to the actual physical sale and be there, and then, you know, bid in person. And so you're always going to get better deals through an on-site auction. Although we've seen on-site auctions before that were crazy sometimes, but you know, for the most part, your on-site auctions are where you're going to find easily the best deals, and that's also where the best properties are sold, is through the auction always.
Well, and you know, Florida has a lot of you know, online auctions, but there is still counties that are conducting old on-site auctions.
Yeah, it's true. You can attend live sales.
You know, and if you live within those areas or close by, it can be worth it to go out to those auctions when they do happen, because you are going to be eliminating your competition.
Well, and I don't know if anywhere in Florida is more than a couple hours away.
Yeah, well, and also there is still some counties that do you know, on-site tax lien auctions. Not a ton, but there's a handful.
Yeah.
You know, and so you know, there's opportunity there as well. But here are a couple examples of some on-site auction tax lien examples. You know, property on the top was picked up for the lien was $8 grand on it. It was worth about 479, and they ended up winning 12.75. And the property on the bottom was $3,000, worth about 300, and they ended up getting 14.5%.
Yeah. And oh, by the way, so the question here, one question: will there be another seminar to attend in person? Right now, the one through the 22nd to the 24th in April is what we have scheduled in person anyway. In Florida.
Yeah, we probably won't be back into the area for maybe 6 months to a year, but we do have our membership program. If you can't make the event, you know, that's a good way to get started and start learning more.
Yeah. Now, online auctions are something that's interesting to talk about. They've even actually gone through changes just recently since COVID has happened. We've seen a number of counties switch over to online auction systems suddenly.
Yeah, yeah, really, they are the future of tax sale investing. You know, we first started seeing a few of them 2002, 2003, 2004. By 2007, there was a number of different ones, but really, even until 2010, it was somewhat limited. But over the last decade, it's exploded. And like Shade said, since COVID, there's been a whole bunch more that have ended up moving over to online auctions, because the pandemic was the one thing that stopped tax sale investing. That was what we used to, you know, we could always hang our hat on, so to speak, is that the auctions happened every single year at the same time. You know, the tax sale was almost like you know, paying your taxes or anything like that. It was just clockwork, and it always happened on a schedule. And the pandemic was the first thing that pulled that back, or that stopped that. And counties started having needing to hold back, weren't able to conduct auctions.
Yeah, we're still dealing with the repercussions of it. There are still counties now that are just getting to hold their sales, but they haven't held tax sales in 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and so there's a lot of backed up inventory here. And I think a lot of those counties realized that in the future, you know, they want the ability to hold their tax sales regardless, and so they've moved over to online auction systems.
Yeah, now one thing that's nice about online auctions is the online auction providers. They're going to provide a ton of additional information, training. Sometimes they'll actually have webinars. They have practice auctions.
Yeah, they try to basically they do everything they can to make it easier for you as the investor to find the information you need. You know, when you're doing your research, they try to put links in you on everything there. You know, online auctions attempt to simplify the process.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when it comes to Florida tax sale online auctions, I would say 80–90% of the counties will hold their tax lien auctions online, and around 40 or 50% of the tax deed auctions.
Yeah, so there are still quite a few tax deed auctions that are happening, you know, just as live auctions, you know, that you can attend where, you know, people have to go to the auction and the highest bidder is going to win.
Yeah, in fact, there's, you know, a few counties that are moving over just as we speak. You know, here's a couple of properties that we ended up picking up in Florida. This was actually a few years ago. And the property on the top we ended up picking up for 10 grand, was worth 52. It was actually a double wide trailer on its own lot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. We ended up actually selling it to the person that was originally renting the property. So we just flipped it, doubled our money on it, quick sell, and actually got rid of that one within 30 days. The property on the bottom ended up picking up for 20 grand. Needed to do some rehab on it. It was in pretty good shape, but, you know, needed paint, carpet, and ended up being valued at around 85,000. Now that property has actually gone up in quite a bit in value since that time. And with this particular property, the strategy was to rent the property out, because in Florida, if you buy a tax deed property and you own the property for 4 years, then you can get what's called a clear title or warranty deed. And that's one thing that we're going to talk about during the 3-day and really get into.
Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah, is the difference between a tax deed and a warranty deed. When we buy tax deed properties, they're still going to have a clouded title or an unwarranted title. Now, we own the property 100% outright, but you know, there still can be things like governmental liens, and it still will need to go through a court process to be able to get it, to be able to turn it into a warranty deed.
Yeah, in fact, it's important to understand and realize that when you buy a tax deed property, that it's not going to be eligible for title insurance. And what that really means is that you're not going to be able to sell it to somebody like a normal real estate transaction because, you know, because of this clouded title. You know, when the property goes through a judicial foreclosure, it places this cloud on the title, and that cloud is going to stop it from being able to be eligible for title insurance. So what would happen if we tried to sell that property to somebody? Let's say we're trying to sell, you know, the $20,000 property to somebody, and they are, bringing their financing to it, or it was just happening like any other real estate transaction, right? Where where let's say it's happening between a couple of agents. What would happen is that deal would end up getting stopped dead in its tracks. You wouldn't be able to sell it because they wouldn't be able to get it approved for the title insurance. And so it's one of the reasons why we wholesale certain properties, or we decide to take certain properties through quiet title. And that's part of what we get to cover during 3 days with you, is some of the details like this, and how you can determine which exit strategy is going to make the most sense for the property.
Yeah, for sure. Now, when it comes to the online auction providers, there's really three. There's realauction.com, there's Grant Street Group, and there's Tax Sale Certificate. Now, when I say there's three, I'm talking about Florida. There's quite a few other different companies out there, but Real Auction and Grant Street Group are two of the biggest. And Tax Certificate Sale is only for tax liens. So Real Auction and Grant Street Group will both have tax lien and tax deed auctions.
Yeah, and there are a couple of the bigger providers, really, across the U.S. These are some examples here of online tax liens that were purchased there from the online auction.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can see different amounts here between 10% to 15.5%. And one thing to mention, when it comes to bidding at the auction, tax lien investing can be very, very competitive. So there's certain counties, there's certain strategies that we're going to use so that we can find the best tax liens, or get the best interest rates on tax lien certificates. In fact, we'll sometimes look at buying tax liens on valuable land, because we can get a lot higher interest rate on a $200,000 5-acre piece of commercial property. Maybe we can get a 14 or 15% interest rate on that, where a $200,000 home may bid all the way down to 3 or 4%, because that investor, or that usually when it's like that, it's more of a hedge fund that are bidding them down low. They're planning on at least getting that 5% early payoff penalty.
Yeah. Well, and they've got lots more capital that they just need to park somewhere.
Yeah. So if you're not a hedge fund, if you're somebody like us, then we're going to use different strategies to try to get the very best, very best interest rates we can.
Yeah, which because Steve's right, that you can't just just attend any auction and expect success, like that. You'll find some auctions are highly competitive, maybe bidding down the interest rates to percentages that don't make sense to you. So that can happen. We've seen that with lots of sales. But there's also good opportunities, if you know where to find them.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about over the counter. Over the counter is a term used to describe purchase and tax liens or deeds directly from the county.
Yeah. So essentially, when the county holds a sale, their options are, they can either, if properties don't sell, they can put them back on the books and wait until the following year, or they can offer them directly to the public, which, when they do that, it creates some additional, investment opportunities for us.
Yeah, definitely. Over the counter tax liens, they give us a lot of benefit. Number one is that we're going to get the highest interest rate return.
Yeah, automatically.
Yeah, so one of the strategies that we focus on with our coaching students and with our members is counties directly after the Florida tax lien sale. We'll go through and look over over the counters that were done through online auction, but we're also going to get any of those counties that had on-site auctions. We're going to get their list and try to buy tax liens very quickly within that area as well.
Yeah, it's very time limited too.
Yeah,
it's like a couple-week window where we do it.
Well, and the tax lien auctions are coming up, really as we speak. When we're going to be there in Florida, the tax lien auctions are all going to be up and running. The auctions in Florida happen, the tax liens auctions happen in the month of May. So
early May too.
They're going to go through, depending on the county, it can start as early as the very end of April, and it can close starting as early as May 5th to the 31st.
Yeah.
So, there's going to be a lot of opportunity. And then what we do with our membership is those over-the-counter list hit, we're going to go ahead and put them on our membership over-the-counter list so that students can start downloading them or going and reviewing those online lists. But like Shade said, it's going to be time sensitive, and that's something that we go over in more detail there at the 3-day.
Yeah. Now, a couple of things it's important to note about over-the-counter tax liens. We mentioned before that on the day of the auction, that redemption period begins. Well, that happens even if the property doesn't sell. So, your over-the-counter properties are already into the redemption period. How far they're into the redemption period can vary. You can actually have over-the-counter inventory that is eligible to be foreclosed on immediately. It might already be past the redemption period, or at the very least, it can take time out of the redemption period so that you're not waiting out the full redemption period. But that also means that they have a higher chance of resulting in foreclosure. Because a certain percentage of them would have already, redeemed. The longer it goes after the sale, the higher the chances are, or the more you increase your chances of being able to acquire the property through foreclosure.
Yeah, definitely. Here's a couple examples of tax liens that were purchased over the counter. In fact, these were tax liens that were purchased, already into the redemption period, 1-2 years, and some of these had the opportunity to foreclose on within 3 to 4 months. So, the property on the left, these are both commercial properties, nothing sexy, nothing real expensive. In fact, this was in a more rural county or a smaller county in Nebraska. But the lien there on the left picked up for $658, had a value of around 38 grand. The lien next to it picked up for $938, was worth around 51 grand. But both of these are, chances are you're going to get paid off, but we're near the end of the redemption period. So instead of having a 5% of acquiring the property, we've probably increased our chances to maybe 15 or 20%.
Yeah, definitely.
Because we're near the end of the redemption period and the property owner hasn't paid it off. Also, if we're going to do something like foreclose on the property and hire an attorney, then those costs are going to be built into what the property owner has to pay as well. Meaning, if we're going to spend, $1,000 in hiring an attorney, we don't want to lose that money. So there's going to be a form to fill out with the county so that is included in the amount that the property owner has to pay to stop the foreclosure.
Yeah. In addition to being able to get over-the-counter liens, you can also get over-the-counter deeds. Fairly simple there. They're just the properties that were offered at auction that nobody purchased. So the one thing that we have to be careful of is, you're going to have a higher percentage of junk property because, of course, these are the ones that didn't get purchased. But you're also going to have, properties that are worth buying and that you can pick up for just the back taxes owed.
Yeah, absolutely. Over-the-counter deeds is a great way to start acquiring property. In fact, with a lot of our coaching students, one of the things that we'll try to do is we try to help them go do a couple of inexpensive, cheap deals in the beginning. In fact, here's a couple examples of these type of property. You can see a property on the far left was picked up for $150, was sold for $3 grand. That's a 2,000% return. Now, $3 grand. I mean, you're not taking $3 grand and saying, hey, I'm moving to the Bahamas, I'm off, I'm retiring. The $3 grand's no retirement money, especially when we're talking about real estate.
Yeah, it's tiny transactions really. But, if you ask the students what they got out of it, it was a lot more than just the return on the money.
Yeah.
It's the doing a successful deal. It's learning how to buy and sell, these types of properties. And developing systems where you can do it more.
Yeah, well, even the property in the middle, I mean, that wasn't quite as great a deal. It was picked up for $569, but was able to quickly sell it for $2,550. And when we're selling these properties, we're selling them as is. So the county sold it to us as a tax deed. We're essentially selling it as a tax deed as well, a quick claim deed to the new buyer. The property on the far right, $100, sold for $3,500% return. But these are the type of properties that are available on the over-the-counter list. There's also nicer properties. In fact, one of our students was able to pick up 27 acres for worth 200 grand for 30 grand off of the over-the-counter list. Was able to turn around and sell that within a month period of time in a as-is deal. So he sold it quickly as well and ended up selling it for 80, making a quick 50 grand.
Yeah, you know, one other thing I was just thinking about is with each of these properties too, if you see that selling price is actually significantly discounted off of what the property's actual value is too. So the buyers that purchase these properties, they're going to make money on the properties as well. So, you know, because they essentially bought them for about 50% of value, you know, so in addition to the investor making, you know, awesome rates of return, they're selling them to, you know, to buyers that are going to make a great rate of return on the money too. They're going to at least double their money.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of our strategy with these cheaper type building lots. And we'll have our students do a couple of these kind of deals to gain experience, to gain confidence, and to gain knowledge as they go out and do bigger type of deals. And so, you know, there is a lot of good over-the-counters available. Now, when it comes to redemption deeds, it really comes down to one state and what type of over-the-counters they have available. And that's going to be the state of Texas. They have what's called struck-off deeds, you know, and they have essentially the same rules as a regular redemption deed there in Texas, except for they didn't get sold at the actual auction.
Yeah. So with struck-off properties, you know, they can be deep into, you know, into the redemption period. If you consider that it's only a 6-month redemption period for a lot of those properties to start with, you know, then you know, it doesn't take very long sitting on the books before, you know, the redemption period, you know, before the redemption period comes up. Now, really, with struck-off properties, we also have that, you know, if it is some kind of farmland or a homestead property, then it has the potential to be a 2-year redemption period.
You know, the one thing about some of the struck-offs, depending on how long they had been on the over-the-counter list, they could, you know, they could be past their redemption period completely.
Yeah.
So you might not need to worry about it at all, especially if we're talking about, you know, most of the property. I mean, you know, homesteads and farmland is a small percentage of the property sold in Texas through tax sales.
Yeah.
You know, I would say maybe 10 or 15%.
Yeah,
you know?
That's probably about right.
Maybe in some auctions it's higher than that, but that it's usually, you know, around that. So it's not going to be a huge amount of property. Most of the properties are going to have that 6-month redemption period. Now let's go ahead and let's go on the website real quick, and we'll go check out a couple of upcoming auctions and review a couple of Florida sales, and then we'll come back and answer any questions that you guys have, and we'll go from there.
All right, so
this is our website, taxsalesupport.com, and this is essentially our membership training site. So you can go ahead and get registered for this. It's $39 a month, and it's going to give you access to essentially everything we have. I mean,
unless you can make it to the training. You can take one of those 5 seats, and those come with 6 months of the website.
Yeah, exactly. And so as far as the actual training site, we're going to have, you know, a training center, a list center. But what we're going to go ahead and do is, you can see we have an auction calendar with all kinds of auctions. We're going to go to our online auction tab because we just want to go check out some of the auctions in Florida. So click on tax lien real quick. Now, the problem with tax liens, not I guess the problem is they're just not open yet. So we can't go through and look at, we could click, let's go ahead and click on one of the counties just to show them. They're essentially not open yet. So they're going to be open, just any of them, doesn't matter. They're not, none of them are open. So just click on one so we can see. Yeah, so, you know, they're going to probably open up here in the next 3 weeks or so, and all of these will become active. So we'll be changing the dates on these to the actual auction dates once they post them, and we'll be updating this over the next couple of weeks. But you can see all of the different counties, the ones that are held by Florida Tax Sales, the ones that are held by Grant Street Group, and the ones that are held by Real Auction. So those will be all of the online auctions that are going to be coming up. Now, because we can't look at any of the online properties, let's go over and let's look at some tax deed properties real quick. We're just going to go back and we'll click on tax deeds. And as we scroll down through the different states, here are the Florida real auction websites and counties.
Yeah, and then here are the ones that use Grant Street Group.
Yep.
So we've got two different types of sales. If we were looking here, so these are the tax deed auctions that are held by the clerk of the court, and this is through Real Auction. And so with Real Auction, what they do is they create a new website for every county that does a sale through them. And their websites that they create all look very similar and have the same features. So, if you become familiar with it, it's very easy to work with the other ones. So we look at the auction calendar here. What we can see, these are the bank foreclosures. That's what we're seeing here in blue. Whoops. The blue are the bank foreclosures, and that's because those also have to go through a public listing system. And then we have the tax deed systems, which are, we can see here, it looks like they have 3 tax deed auctions here in April.
Yeah, in fact, let's go ahead and let's go up to May. We'll look ahead a little bit and see if they have any bigger ones. Let's look at the 5th, for example. And you can see that they have 20 properties left out of the 50. And that's because there's properties redeeming up until the auction date. In fact, one of the strategies that we're going to talk about at the 3-day is how to contact property owners before the property actually sells at the tax deed auction and buy the property, what we call a pre-foreclosure. In fact, we have different investor profile strategies that we have within the training and on the website that we'll go through and explain that investing profile and strategy and how to implement it.
Something else that you can see here is Florida also has homestead property exemptions, which is really just a way for people to try to reduce what their property taxes are. But it can also give the property owner additional protections. And in Florida, what it does is if a property has a homestead exemption, then if it comes up for a tax deed sale, then they have to list the property at 50% of its estimated value. And so if we're looking through a list like this, and then we suddenly see a property like this one right here, where we can see that it's opening up for $96,000 and it has an assessed value of $161. That's probably going to be a homestead property. That's probably what we're looking at there. Is a situation here where you have a homestead property that's been listed, so they've increased the the opening bid amount.
Yeah, really what they're trying to do is protect the property owner so that if it is a homestead property and it does end up selling, that they're they're going to be able to get some money back. Because what happens is, let's say that a $100,000 property comes up at auction, the opening bid starts at 10 and then ends up selling for 50,000. That 50,000 is going to go to the county, and the county has $10,000 worth of debt because that's what the opening bid was. They're going to take that 10,000 that they're owed out of that 50,000, and they're going to go ahead and pay the back taxes. But there's still going to be this additional 40,000. Now, who has right to that 40,000 is first going to be any type of government liens or anything like that that could still be on the property, because government liens are the one thing that can survive a tax deed foreclosure.
Yeah, in fact, it's really the only types of things that can survive, a tax lien foreclosure, or a judicial foreclosure. The only thing that can survive are other liens. They're basically equal to that lien that is foreclosing. And so,
and besides a mechanics lien, they're all going to be some type of government entity. Excuse me.
And so, we're looking here. So that's probably a homestead property here. But then you can also see, well, look at the numbers on that. So here's one they'll probably most likely redeem because it's only $2,400 owed, and
this is probably you'd think that they would have got the notices. And what there's a couple different reasons why this can happen. It could be just because they ended up not paying it. But also it's the property owner's responsibility to update.
It's probably a partial lien.
Yeah, update their property records, with the county. So if they end up moving, then they need to go ahead and update the county about that move.
Oh, wow, this is this
Probably a condo.
Yeah, whoops, let me go back here. Look, so the reason why we're fascinated by this one is just because it's rare to see a property that's valued at over $1 million, 1.1 million, with a lien against it that's only $2,400.
Yeah, we would expect the lien on that to be 50 to 100 grand.
Yeah, at least.
Click on the link. It's the property records, and that's one thing that's nice about online auctions is it can go ahead and automatically pull up the property information so that we can see more about it.
Hotels. It's a condo. It's a 3-bedroom, 3-bath. 1,600 square foot condo built in 2018. It's a luxury condo.
Yeah, it is. So let's see what it's sold for. Now, one thing that is so nice about Florida is they are the best state for county records. In fact, we're going to go through and we'll be talking about it in 3-day and reviewing how to research the tax records, the property records like this, but also the court records. That way we can look up this property and property owner and see if there's any government liens that may be attached to the property that we need to be worried about.
And what's interesting in this property, the only time it's ever sold was when it was built.
Yeah.
In 2018. So it's got a fairly short history.
Well, and you can see it's not like, it's 31st Street property. Like the owner is the name of the property. This is a high-end investor, somebody wealthy, and they're letting this slip through the cracks because their bill is probably going to their old house or something like that. In fact, we could probably look. We can see the owner there, and then we can see the mailing address. Yeah, it's in New York.
Yeah, it's in New York. It's in Manhattan.
Yeah, so this is probably obviously not being owned by somebody living in the property.
Yeah, this is a high-end condo owned by somebody in New York, and yeah, that's interesting.
It'd be interesting to see if it starts the auction for starting at $2 grand.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
Here's something a little bit more realistic though. $23,000 opening bid, $265,000 value, on North Drive there in Miami.
Yeah. Now these properties, if it goes to auction, it could very well end up getting bid up. It can be competitively bid up in Florida for things like nice single-family homes. There are ways though you can make money going after different types of properties, maybe than everybody else is going after.
Well, and in some of these competitive markets, it's still going to be the cheapest way that you can acquire property. There's just other markets that you're going to be able to get a better deal at. For example, you're going to be able to get a better deal in Polk County, or a county like that, more central, more rural, than a place like Miami.
That is crazy. Look at the value jump. Look at that.
Yeah.
Like that is insane. So that went from $300,000, a year ago, and they're saying it gained $200,000 in plus in a year. That is crazy.
Man,
but that's also why even if you buy this property, at 70% of value, it still ends up making you plenty of money because you're making the initial money when you buy it, but also that's the real trick with Florida real estate right now, is that it's gaining value so fast that you're making more money just by holding it.
Well, and it's one of the reasons I love tax sale investing is that regardless if the market is going up or the market is going down, tax sale investing is always going to be profitable. So we've been doing this really our whole adult lives. We started in our early 20s, first getting involved with it, started working with different seminar companies as coaches and trainers in the early 2000s. And by 2007, had written our own program and started teaching seminars. In fact, we taught our first seminar in Orlando back in 2007. And you know, since that time, we've seen the markets go up, the markets go down, but the tax sale investing is always going to be a good strategy. You're always going to earn, you know, you're always going to have a chance to earn 18%, you know, on tax liens in Florida. In fact, if the market's down, we have chances, and a lot of times, to get better prices even, or higher interest rate returns. So it's a strategy that you could use in any market.
Yeah, yeah. This is just another high-end condo. You know, you know, the condos are kind of a good opportunity in Florida as well. You know.
Well, and it's the one type of property, like that particular property, or some of these that are, you know, that we would go ahead and buy sight unseen. You know, that's the one problem with tax sale structures, homes. It's part of the reason why we have our coaching students start with land in the beginning to get a couple of deals before moving on to homes, is because homes and structured properties, we really do have to judge the book by the cover.
Yeah, that's where most of the risks are, really, is in, you know, at least if you're going to make a mistake, it's really easy to make a mistake when you have, you know, a structure and improvements in the, you know, the condition of it.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're going to have to get on-site evaluations. We're going to have to try to judge the outside to hopefully be able to judge the inside, and that's not always going to be correct. But with something like a newer condo, we're going to eliminate a lot of potential cost or problems, meaning the foundation and the roof, you know, the top and the bottom. There could be a lot of cost if there's any problems with the foundation of the roof, and that's something we're not going to worry about with the condo. Really, all we're worrying about is those interior walls. And if there was something like a major water leak, you know, the neighbor or the downstairs, you know, it just eliminates a lot of risks. They're usually going to be newer, so we could go ahead and really determine the value. Now we're going to go ahead and take into account, you know, any repairs that we may need to do, make sure that we can get it for a good deal. But we would, that is one of the type of properties you could bid on sight unseen.
Yeah, that is, I think that is true. And even then, you know, it's good to have contacts there in the area, you know, boots on the ground that can get you additional information on it that you maybe can't get, you know, over the internet. All right, let's see here.
And do we have any other we want to search?
Well, you know, there are, I think one thing we can just say is that there are tons of sales happening right now. I mean, in Florida alone, you're going to have so many sales happening.
Yeah, well, you saw all those tax lien auctions. Those are all on our website. They're all going to be coming up. You know, you can see all of those tax deed auctions that are happening. In fact, you know, what's nice about Florida is, and this is kind of the strategy that we take when we invest in Florida auctions, is we'll go ahead and put a deposit in one of these online auctions, and we'll just kind of, you know,
just roll it.
Yeah, we'll just roll it. We'll just bid on property each month, because that's one thing that some of these counties will have auctions every month. There, you can see Miami had 3 or 4 auctions that month, 3 auctions, you know, so they're going to have several different sales, and we're just going to keep bidding until we get a property at the price that we want. That's how we were able to acquire those homes that we showed you earlier, you know, that we purchased in Florida. Is, you know, we actually ended up bidding in 3 different auctions to get one of the homes. Then we bid it in 3 more auctions, so essentially 3 months. Over a 6-month period, we ended up getting 2 homes. Now we bidded on, you know, probably 6 or 7 homes on each one of those properties before getting it, but we wanted to get it at the price that we wanted. And so because of it, we had to take a little bit longer strategy, where we were willing to wait 6 months to buy, you know, 6 properties, even if we did have to participate in 6 auctions.
Yeah. I think that's all we're going to cover.
Yeah,
here.
I mean, really, just kind of lastly, you know, what is the 3-day going to include? We've kind of already went over it. It's going to include a ticket for you and your spouse. It's also going to include a post-event strategy session. So after the 3-day, we'll go ahead and set you up with our one of our mentors to do a strategy session, get you pointed on what direction you want to go next.
Yeah, but the main things are just the prices of the tickets been discounted significantly, and it includes the 6 months of membership.
Yeah, and also, you know, we're going to offer that 1-day money back guarantee. So if you come the first day, you don't like it, you know, we'll go ahead and cancel and refund your money. You know, we've been doing this a long time. I mean, me and Shade, you know, like we mentioned, started our first company in 2007 and taught thousands and thousands of students. And the one thing that we do believe we offer is the best value. I mean, even in today's training, even though we're talking about our 3-day and we're going to be in the area, we tried to give you guys as much content as we possibly can. And that's, you know, the same as,
it's kind of how we treat the 3-day too.
Our membership program and everything.
Yeah.
You know, we have videos. You can go look on us, you know, on our Facebook page or our YouTube page. We have videos going back since 2007. You know, on YouTube. We've been doing this a long time, and if you're interested, we'd love to have you come out, and we've tried to discount it and make it possible for people that are interested to be able to afford it.
Yeah, there's lots of companies out there, you know, new startups, you know, that are trying to jump on it because
they're trying to capitalize on tax lien and deed investing, but have really never provided training or coaching or anything.
They're not even interested in the training side of it. All they really want to do are the seminars.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are interested, we'd love to have you out there. Now, if you have any questions, we've got a couple of minutes left here. We can answer any questions. If you do, you can go down to the chat section and ask them. You know, we're more than happy to answer questions. If not, we'll go ahead and call it a day. One thing to mention is that we will go ahead and provide a replay of this to you. So we'll send you out an email so that if you know, weren't able to catch all of it or miss some of it, we'll go ahead and get you the replay so that you can review it all.
Yeah, and you can use the link down here in the chat section, you know, to go to the website for it, or you can also call the 800 number down there below, 800-425-8068. Because yeah, like I said, we've got a couple of seats left. We hope that you know, if a few of you are interested in attending, you can do that.
Yeah, well, if you're not sure, go ahead and give us a call and you know, set up a time with the strategist and we can help answer any questions. This really isn't a pressure thing. It's the reason we offer a money back guarantee is because we really do believe that we provide the best training and the best value.
Yeah, but thank you so much for joining us today. We love doing this and we would love to do it again.
Yeah, appreciate it.
We'll see you later.